Hello, welcome to the Acrylic Painting Club online school. My name is Mara Trumbo and thank you for inviting me into your home. The acrylic painting we'll be doing is a spring flower basket. The original painting that you see here was actually a little too busy, so I have readapted it, but don't worry, it's the same technique, just a different version. So come on, join me and let's have fun painting. My acrylic paints of choice are Traditions made by Deco Art. They are professional colors, rich in pigment and with excellent coverage. I also use natural sea sponges, as you can see here, the rougher the better. And for this painting we have a 16 by 20 canvas divided with a 4-inch bottom and 16-inch background top. The easiest way of painting it is with a roller. You wet the roller, take off the excess water. Put your color of choice on the tray. In this case, it's sapphire blue. If you think it's a little bit too dark for your liking and you want to perhaps match your decor in the house, please feel free to do so. When we roll on canvas, the flexibility of the canvas makes it jump up and down. So you will have spots that are darker, some that are lighter, but don't let it worry you because the effect we're trying to get, it's a full Italian marble effect. So in fact, the lights and darks work very nicely with it. We paint the canvas any which way, horizontal, vertical, crossways, and as I say, don't worry if it stops here and there. We can fill up the white spots with a brush afterwards. If you're using a gallery canvas, that's the ones with the staples at the back and with either 1/2 inch or 2-inch sides that don't require framing, you may consider painting the sides as well as the top edge, so that it looks nice when you hang it up on the wall and semi-finished. Okay, now you want to do this pretty quick because to get the special effect, the paint must still be wet. The little bubbles there will actually help with the final effect as well. Pick up the cellophane that your canvas was wrapped in and flatten it, and with your hands make little creases here, there and everywhere. Move it across if the paper is too short. If you don't have cellophane, use saran wrap or an inside-out plastic bag, and look at the beautiful effect that comes out. And that's with very little effort. The bottom should be with medium beige, but if you prefer, like I have a golden oak table, so I have put a little bit of raw sienna with this. So the bottom can be changed. If you want to accent your decor and perhaps you have a cherry dining room table, just mix a little bit of burnt sienna with it or a little bit of red with the color, and personalize your painting as you prefer it. Again, we're going to paint the bottom rim and the 2 sides. And then we're going to take a brush and we're going to have horizontal brush strokes. This is to help you emulate the grain of the wood, and if you go vertical it won't work. So smooth it over a little bit, paint again the top and bottom, make sure there's no uncovered sides, smooth it, make a straight edge at the end, swirl it around and make oval rounds like this, and this will actually look like a plank of light golden oak by the time you're finished. The top edge of the table will look better if that line is actually strengthened, so I'm going to try and do it with the same color, just less diluted. And you don't have to do it right through because the basket will be somewhere in the middle, so just the 2 sides will be fine for now, and later on we'll even touch it up with possibly a shade of umber. Now we're going to check and see where the roller has missed out a lot of the paint. Here we've got the wood grain again. As you can see, the finish is very similar to wood. And there's a few white spots which I'm not happy with, like in the corner there. So I'll just pick up a little bit of blue and white on the brush. And the idea is just to fill it in odd spots and smudge it out with your finger. And you're going light over dark and dark over light. And it doesn't have to be everywhere, because as I mentioned, in the middle you'll have your basket, you'll have your ferns hanging over, you'll have your flowers. So any spot in there will be covered up. Then I decided, yes, that edge is looking a little bit weak. I would prefer to make it more visible, so I'm going to side load. And the side loading is filling your brush with just water, and then only one edge is into the dark umber, the burnt umber color, and you can see it transfers into the water like almost a smudge. And that's really what you want. You want it strong on top and disappearing into the lighter color underneath. If you haven't got a steady hand, may I suggest you use a low-tack artist tape. That's a blue kind. Don't use anything else, because once it sticks on top of the canvas and you rip it off, the paint will come with it. Here I've actually darkened some of the wood as well, and you can see how nicely that looks with the marking. We now place the pattern in place, 3 inches from the left, 2 inches from the bottom. Secure the pattern in place, and with some dark graphite, trace the outlines of the basket and the handle. Don't go into too much detail at this stage. We're just wanting outlines, because the handle will probably end up disappearing behind the foliage, and the bottom still needs to have the stays put in. So here's what the pattern would look like. And if your background is a little bit darker than mine, then may I suggest you use white graphite to do your design with. So now we're getting ready to paint the background of the basket, and that'll be done with burnt umber. It's a very rich in pigment, this paint, so you just need one coat, and that'll cover it all, the blue background and the tabletop. I have overloaded my brush, as you can see, and I'm doing the little basket weave at the bottom. That's why I'm shaking my hand. It's actually in that shape. It's undulating, straight sides on both sides. And you can see how much paint I've got. I can almost paint the whole thing just with one loading. Up on the other side. Straight strokes are okay, or it's a good time to actually practice your crisscross strokes here. And you can see I've speeded up the video. Please don't paint at this speed. Give yourself a heart attack. This has just been done for the sake of making the film a little bit shorter and less boring. Come up to the middle, down the other side, reload the brush, run out of juice there. Come to the other side and dry this either by having a cup of coffee. It'll take a few minutes to dry, or get a hair dryer if you're in a hurry to get on to the next step. Once it's totally dry, put the pattern on and your white graphite, making sure the paper is turned the right way. With a pen, a stylo, or a pencil, draw in the stay lines. Again, take your time and go straight as you can. And here are your stays. Now, here is something that I'd like to tell you not to do. I am loading with a full strength raw sienna paint. And I did this because I was afraid it wouldn't show if I had diluted it. The camera would not pick it up. When you in fact are doing yours, please make sure that it's inky and very, very light. Otherwise it'll actually show through when you do the weave on top. And you don't want it showing through. All you want to do is to show between one weave and the other, the tiny little bit that comes through, and that we can strengthen at the end when we revise everything and we do all the corrections. So this is one time, which is please do as I say, not as I did. Now we're going to be painting the stays, and the brush is double loaded again. in what should have been raw sienna with burnt sienna, and in error I picked up raw sienna and burnt umber. Burnt umber being the background color. Of course, the stays merge into the background at the bottom, and you're not going to see them as well. I was wondering what was wrong with it, and I found out later, too late to stop the video halfway, so I decided to complete it and correct it later on. You also see that the paint is squirting at the side of my brush. I've actually not only overloaded the brush, but I'm holding it in such a way to avoid the camera tripod that I'm pressing more on one side than the other. So when you do this, please take your time, load the brush correctly, hold the canvas either upright on your easel or flat on the table so there's no movement. These are U strokes, a slightly U, it's almost straight with a slight undulation there, and that's to make it look three-dimensional. You want it to look concave. Okay, so I'm doing the other side. I've also learned to paint, by the way, ambidextrous. I've used my left hand, my right hand. I've painted upside down and back to front. I tried every trick in the book to try and keep out of the camera lens's way. When you get to the end, you're going to have a little space left, so you can just touch with the brush, which will indicate one of the stays going around the corner. The bottom trim of the basket, it's like a braid, and here I've double loaded my round brush with raw sienna on top and burnt umber at the bottom. This time is the right way, yes, but because of the pressure I'm putting on the brush, the dark isn't showing as much at the bottom. You can see it on the brush, but not the way I'm pushing it. So make sure when you do yours that it's 50-50, dark at the bottom, light at the top, and I will be touching this up at the end when we make our corrections. Reloading the brush with the two colors. We're doing the top of the basket, and that is also an S stroke. It's slide, push, and slide. Practice this on paper again if you need to. You'll see some of the background still showing through the blue there, and we're going to fill that in later on. There'll be lots of corrections going along here. I could have stopped the video many times. I could have made it look right as though it was perfect, but we need to show you that teachers also make mistakes, and we need to show you how to fix them. The handle is only partially visible because by the time you filled in your flowers and all your foliage, some of it is bound to be hidden. So don't fuss too much about it. You can actually thin out your paint and just do a quick outline of it, because later on we can strengthen the portion that it's showing, and if not, it'll be weak enough to hide behind the leaves and flowers. Now we're going to be doing the foliage with a natural sea sponge, and we're going to load this in purple, green, and yellow intermittently with a yellow on the top. Merge the three colors together by bouncing it up and down on your paper or your plate. It's almost like a rubber stamp, but you don't want them to all be identical, so move your hand to the right and to the left, overlap it, and you may want to do this exercise a couple of times. You may also want to add a little bit of white with the yellow on the top to make it like a spring green. Don't come down too low because you'll mess up the handle of the basket, so that will be filled in by the brush. So tap, 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 and that's the quickest way of making some of the ferns in the background. With the brush, we're now going to cover the bottom part between the basket top and the greenery. And again, this will be covered up by flowers and a lot of other leaves, but you don't want the blue showing through at this stage. And we'll put in a couple of little one-stroke leaves with the brush, but push, push, and lift. And this will take us to the end of part one. let it dry, and we'll see you in a little while. Hello and welcome back. I am Mara Trumbo and we'll be resuming painting Spring Flower Basket, which is a project specially designed for the Acrylic Painting Club online school. I absolutely love experimenting with colors and with my imagination, so this is a pretty busy picture. You can alter it at your will. We are using Traditions by Deco Art, fantastic strong paints. And as I always do in my studio, first I let my students practice on paper. We have patterns to guide you along, and we don't go straight onto the canvas. So let's get our paints ready and start practicing. I'm using both the angular and the flat brush. In this case, the angular comes first. Double loading the brush with white and alizarin crimson, we're going to start painting rosebuds. They are pretty simple. You slide your brush up, across and down, forming an arch or an upside down U as we call it. Start at the same point and now come down and up, and there's your first bud. We'll do another one slightly different. You can wiggle your hand if you like, so it gives a ripple effect at the back. You can also widen the bottom to make it more round bud. And if you want to simulate a rose that's starting to open and with an overlapped petal, here we are, that's an S stroke going up. And those will have calyx put in a minute. Now I'm going to show you an open rose. Again, you can do the wiggle wiggle stroke or the straight one as I'm doing now. 5, 6 petals, however many you get by pressing your brush wide, flat, dark on the inside, white on the outside, and a blend of the two colors in between. These are C strokes, which is just nothing but like a comma when you're writing. So you have what are called foreshortened petals at the sides and at the bottom within the open petal, and the closed ones at the top that form the bud. You can do 1 or 2 arches here, up to you, and then close it as you did with the bud, and there's your little open rose. These can be done many ways. You can actually do the base first with 3 little arches, followed by 2 underneath it, followed by 1 underneath that, and then start closing the first, the second, and bringing in some C strokes at the side. Load your brush well, because at times if it's too heavy, like it's doing now, it's not producing what I would like to see in a stroke. So I try and correct it, but if I don't like it, I just erase it. These paints stay soft and white wet for a little while, so it gives you a chance to do corrections. You can go straight over it using the other as a color base. Go back with your white and alizarin crimson, and these are what we call number 7 strokes. It's a comma stroke. Come round, come all the way around, and then put some little foreshortened petals in between again. Little comma there, little comma here, and 1 underneath, and here is your other little rose. So there's various ways of obtaining a similar result. It just takes a lot of practice, but you'll enjoy the journey, I'm sure. We're now going to put little seeds within the roses, so you're going to see the little stamens come up. You can either do them with little green stems, but I just sometimes just dot yellow pollen, which is quite effective. Don't go too high, don't go too heavy, just tiny little dots on the tip of your brush, and it's undiluted paint, so it actually gives you that 3D effect. Then, without even cleaning the brush, I am going to pick up some dark green, and the yellow and the dark green will give you a lighter color. Variegated, so it comes out different both sides. This is your calyx going up on the other side from the rosehip I painted underneath, and a small one in the middle. You never want the middle ones to be as long as the others, otherwise it covers your design. This one, the calyx jut out a little bit because this is about to open, so the petals are pushing it out, and again a small one in the middle. Now we're going to put on some stems on these roses and some little branches where the leaves are going to go. When I paint rose leaves, because they're normally rusty and they have all the colors of the rainbow at times, I put a lot of red with my green, and on the tip I put yellow and white. In this case I'm exaggerating the colors just to show you the blend, but you do what you like. Put the brush with the angle on the stem, push, wiggle, release in the middle, and up it comes. And when you release it in the middle, it forms that little line in the middle, which makes it look like a realistic rose leaf. Press and out. If it doesn't come out roundish like you want it, you change the shape of it with the corner of your brush or a little liner brush afterwards. Here's the other two. Press, come out to the middle and release. Round it off if you prefer. Press to the middle and release. Now we also have what they call a cabbage rose or an English rose. It's more of a closed, almost like a chrysanthemum petals. You know, they're all close towards the middle. So you want to darken the throat of the rose and the belly underneath with the alizarin crimson. And then either with your flat brush double loaded with white and alizarin crimson, you're making C strokes all the way around. It's very simplistic rose, very effective. You're seeing this basket from a distance, so you really don't have to be botanically correct with every petal that you paint. Even a little liner brush actually will do very nicely here. And here's your impressionistic cabbage rose. Now this will also need a couple of leaves, and not all of them are showing the stems, so we can actually have the leaves squeezing out from underneath the rose. So you put the dark section right next to the petal and the lighter section pointing out, and again it'll be press and release, press and release, press and release. We now go on to practice some ferns and some leaves. You'll see in every florist basket a selection of different ferns. They come in all shapes and sizes, and it's normally what they use is more everlasting ferns than rose leaves would be in a bouquet. So this is done by pressing your round brush from the outside in, more pressure when you first start to create that nice little round edge, and it releases the pressure as you come towards the stem. The other fern is more light and it's done with a liner brush, and I also like to dilute the paint here with a little bit of water. And when I pick up my greens, often pick up light green, dark green, yellow, all at the same time, so you have this variegation again showing. Make the little spikes every which way, don't make them all straight up like it hits a light socket. You want it to look soft and more natural, and sometimes you cross them over each other like nature would if they are wind blown. Now this is a wiggle wiggle leaf. Speeded the film up a little bit, but basically it's a zigzag stroke. You go up and down towards the center, dark in the middle, light outside, and you can reverse the colors if you wish. Another little reminder of how to do the rose leaves. Put the angle on the stalk, press, lift and release, press, lift and release, press, lift, and if you smudged it, keep a clean wet brush next to. We'll now go on to paint daisies. They come in all colors as well, and since I'm painting on white paper, we'll do a blue one here. I am using the round brush, and this gives you a medium-sized petal. You can also do finer ones with a liner brush and thicker ones with the filbert brush. You can have an imaginary corolla in the middle and work towards it, or you can actually do the corolla first and then bring the petals to the center. Whichever way you choose. You may, though, as a beginner, start to let one section dry before you add the yellow in it. I am doing it all in one operation here, and I'm also having a little problem there to stop it smudging. So if you have the time, let it dry first and then introduce the corolla, which is done with orange at the bottom, yellow at the top, You can put some little dots around. Normally, if it's full view, it goes all the way around. If it's side view, only 3/4 at the bottom. And then you can highlight some of those with white, and you'll see me do them later on also in black and white. And they are quite simple flower to do, but they face every which way. So do practice every one on your sheet. You have some that are like in profile, 3/4 view, full view, and facing down. The daisy leaf is actually the same as the fern, only done on a miniature size scale. And with your liner brush, and normally I dilute the paint a little bit, but it all depends on the absorbency of your canvas. You may try with full strength paint first, and if it's feeling a little bit rough, add a tiny little bit of water or extender on the brush. When you feel you've had enough practice, reload your palette with Traditions colors, fetch your canvas, and let's start doing the real thing. See you in a little while. Welcome back. It's time to put theory and practice together now. And so as you load up your palette with fresh colors, we are going to go across to your canvas and start with daisies. Daisies come in all colors, but in this particular instance we're starting with white, the traditional white daisies, and with the corolla first, which is yellow on top, orange at the bottom, and you tip tap in between so that you can get a blend of the two colors. So it graduates from yellow into orange. Then we switch to the brush with the white. In this instance I have used a filbert. It's a little bit wider than the round, shorter petals on top because this flower is 3/4 facing up, longer at the side and the longest in the front. Now, many of my students ask me, how many petals do I put on a daisy? Well, as many as you like, going around that corolla. You can even overlap some. I have never actually counted them, and I'm sure there are various varieties out there with different numbers. So if it's easier for you, start with the corolla first. This is front facing, full facing, so you shape it like a cross or a clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock, and fill in the other hours in between, petals in this case. The ones that are you squeezing in between two broad ones, you put the brush sideways and you make a thinner little one there. It looks more natural. Now remember, when you're grouping flowers, to have them not standing at the identical distance from one another, not facing the same way, and not the same height and length. So differ the strokes. This one is facing downwards, and if it's easier for you to do it with waiting for the paint to dry before you go with the white on, do that. One more daisy, and then we're switching on to our rosebuds. Double load your flat or angular brush with white and alizarin crimson, and here we're doing the U again, and an opening bud and another little one behind it. This one we're going to be doing slightly different. Standard procedure again, upside down U with a U at the bottom, and then we're going to highlight the top petals in a nest stroke coming down one side and the other. Makes it almost look like a little tulip. Quite cute. We're going to do a few little buds around here, and because the soundtrack is giving me a problem, I may have to erase the sound in this part, so if you hear long breaks of silence, please forgive. You can still follow by seeing what I'm doing. Calyx, I'm doing them in every color right now that comes up on my brush. This one is too pale, for example, but I will later on you'll see me fixing them all up. I have my sound back, and here we are now painting yellow rosebuds. Yellow is normally a very transparent color, but mixed with the white actually covers the background beautifully, as you can see here. We're going to do a few little buds and an open rose. This is semi-open. They are miniature roses again, so go small with your little C strokes on your brush. I'm trying to paint this past the camera lens again, so I'm having to do a few corrections as I go along, but I'm sure you'll get it right the first time. The beauty of this paint is, of course, you can go over it again and again and again, and it covers beautifully. So we're going to have another little bud below here, and have this one semi-opening as well. And then we'll put another little one on the right side. And you can place yours wherever you like. Just look back and see what you like and what variety of flowers. Like here, I'm going to insert another daisy. I think I've got enough little roses on the way there. And this daisy is looking down. So the top petals will be horizontal. The bottom ones and side ones will be lateral and facing down vertically. And then you can put in the corolla afterwards. And then, as a famous artist often says on PBS, he'll want a little friend, won't he? So here's Miss Daisy's little friend at the back here. Marguerite is her name. Behind the daisy, we're going to put a wiggle leaf. So we're going to zigzag up and down with the two colors on the brush. The outside is not showing enough, so I'm going to strengthen it with a little white. And then we're going to make a lilac daisy out of the pink and blue together. Give it a little. Time to start putting some greenery in our composition, and we'll start with the ferns. This is the one done with the round brush. Outline a stalk and then push and pull into the center. And when you first push, that gives you that nice round top, and then it slims down as you relieve the pressure coming towards the center. As you come down, you want those leaves to be a little bit longer, and the fern should widen. And if the green in the background is too similar to what you have, just dip your brush into a little darker green. And you can go either on top of the handle or behind it. We'll put another one on this side, but I think we'll switch over to the liner brush and make it a little bit more soft. And these are the little ferns that look like palm fronds almost, just miniature palm fronds. They're slightly curved. Never make them too straight because they look too stiff otherwise. And then we'll do another little round one on top. This is much smaller and softer, so we're doing it with the liner brush instead of the round brush. But same technique, push and drag into the center. And put the leaves sometimes facing a different way so that they look more natural. The corrections are coming up now. I wanted to tidy those little buds that didn't look too good at the beginning, and also alter the dark calyx I had put in there. So this is touch-up time. A few more rose leaves behind the pink ones. Always do a grouping of 3 or 5, and then you can add them up with the side brush or with your little liner brush. We'll put a few behind the yellow ones as well. And I've picked up a little bit too much yellow, but that's fine. It looks like the reflection of the flowers in there. So 2 there, and we'll put 1 in the middle as well. And then just tidy up the edges if you're not happy with the shape. We now put in some calyx around the yellow roses. I've just picked up the green that I had on the palette, the sap green. The stem is much too thin. That rose will probably not hold its weight. So we're going to touch that up, but this is just putting things into perspective. We just put the calyx in, darken them up. you never want the same green throughout. So vary your greens by adding brown, by adding alizarin crimson. You can even add blue where in the shade, and strengthening the stems. I absolutely love the color combination of alizarin crimson and yellow, and I've also tipped the brush with white at the very end, and you can see it makes this romantic little roses there, just perfect for that basket. And they also pick up the color of the daisy centers in there too. So experiment with your colors. You don't have to stick to the colors as they come straight out of the bottle. Mix and match. Time to put in the lavender sprigs. So draw a line with the dark Cecine purple and pick up white on your round brush and come down left, right and center, left, right and center, left, right and center, and that'll give it the three-dimensional look. If you only do the two sides, it'll look like a fern. So make sure that you cover all your bases, and you can always touch it up afterwards, make it lighter or darker. So we have one on the left, we'll put one in the center between the two ferns up there. This one is slightly thicker, and you don't want them all to look exactly the same, so feel free to even blend a little bit of blue in here. Left, right and center is your recipe for this one, and you can darken or lighten it as you like. We're going to take another sprig on the other side as well, and this one can come out underneath the handle as well. In the background there I would like to put a little fern, but I want it to look very faded, like it's right way back there. So I've mixed a little gray with my greens. I often like to see this little silver ferns, and half of them that are hitting the light will be a little bit lighter than the one that's folded over. So now look around your basket, left, right and center, and you'll notice there's a gap in the middle, and that's because I started with the top and then I went to the right and then went to the left. So now you decide where you want the extra flowers. We'll put this daisy here peeping over the handle, facing us 3/4 and with a little center on. We'll put another one beside it, and this one is going to be facing backwards. So we're going to see its calyx holding it up and its stem bringing it down. And when you do stems, don't make them too visible and make them disappear behind other flowers or in the foliage. 2, 3 little petals appear, buds. And then we'll do another little one here hiding behind this last one we painted. And vary the size, as I said, and the position. This one closer to the front will obviously be bigger. It's like your prima donna, so be generous with your strokes. Smaller on top than they are in the front. It's again facing 3/4 of the way, and you can extend the petals if you want to make it full on. We still have some space available, so we're going to put a few little buds here and there. This one is a little bit big for a daisy. I think I may convert it to a rosebud later on. Now we'll need another little sprig of lavender on the right. So we'll draw that in, and again from the stalk you go left, right and center, left, right and center, and there is your little lavender. Done already, and you can highlight it a little bit more or darken it if you think it's necessary. We're going to start touching up the daisies now and the corollas. This one was I found was a little bit too dark. It needed a little bit revamping, so I've added a bit more orange to it. This one didn't have one at all, so it's being inserted now. And we'll add another daisy here before we switch to another flower. And this one is done with a filbert brush. As you can see, these strokes are much wider. And now for my favorite little rose I used to grow in South Africa, called Blue Moon, and here they are. Yes, it is a blue rose, and yes, they do exist. Wish I could grow them here. They are so delicate. When they open up and fade, they turn into a mauvish color. Here I've made the base too big, so with a wet brush I've cleaned it and tissue paper, and then just put another one right beside it. And then we'll give them some little buds next to it. I've already converted the one that was a daisy bud a little bit too big into a rose bud. Rosehip at the bottom, calyx at the sides, little stem. The calyx of an open rose will be facing downwards like this. And then we'll add on a little bit of greenery. Those are actually the little daisy leaves coming through, not rose leaves, because there wasn't really enough space there to play with. And then step back, see what else needs doing. And we're going to outline the daisies with little dots of burnt umber or black if you wish. You can also use actually a permanent marker to do this if your hand isn't steady enough with a small brush. But they turn out quite cute. If you want to emphasize them even more, you can put little white dots in between. Remember, unless it's facing you full, you don't go all the way around, 3/4 of the way around. Now we have to fix that basket, remember that. This is a step hopefully you will not have to do because you will get it right the first time, but just in case, I have reloaded the brush with raw sienna and burnt sienna. You can see the difference here as I'm going over the previous strokes. And the brush is double loaded, so you can see your lights and your darks and your shade in between. I'm going to fasten this up so that you can see the completed basket in the shortest possible time. Now while I'm doing this, since I didn't draw a pattern for the actual weaving, all you had was the stays. The rest of it is left to your imagination and my teaching you here. Again, I emphasize the stroke. It's like a slight bent U. It's so that the basket looks convex and each weave stands out slightly round. The edges, all you're seeing is a little bit, so just tap, tap, tap on the way down, because you're not seeing the full weave going around the corner. And because I may be touching up too many of the spaces and I'm losing some of the dark underneath, I am going to next load up the liner brush and start doing that as well. The bottom is just highlighted to bring out that braid pattern, the same as the sides with the round brush. Now we're loading the brush with the dark umber, the burnt umber color, and going in between the weave of the basket, also erasing out the little blue lights shining through. You really don't want to see those because of the thickness of the foliage in the flowers. If you smudge it anywhere else, you just touch up as you go along. I'm redefining the lines in between where the dark should have been, where I've made them perhaps a little bit too close to one another. And then the golden stays will be strengthened. And that step you'll be doing because as I mentioned at the beginning, the stays should be painted on very, very lightly. And here I wasn't happy with just how much space I had blocked out, so I'm putting in more darks and redefining each of the areas. But I'm not going to let you live through another half an hour of this. I'm going to finish touching it up and show you the final result. So now I have to reintroduce the stays that have disappeared when I darkened the spaces. So one by one, and then we are going to just tidy up, have a look at everything around us, do final touch-ups, and we'll have to start completing a shadow underneath the basket to make it sit on the table. That's done with liquid umber and lots of water. On the brush, just shake your hand to make it resemble a shadow there. And then the harder shadow will be made with dark satin purple. And for that, we're going to side load the brush as we did earlier with a wet brush, water on one side and purple on the other. And you gently go directly underneath the base, starting with a small line on the left and making it wider as you come towards the right and make it integrate into the brown. Well, you're almost done at this stage. You just have to look back and see if you're happy with the total result. Sign your name with pride and have your beautiful piece framed. I hope you've enjoyed this session. I have certainly enjoyed designing it and painting along with you. I thank Acrylic Painting Club Online School for inviting me to be your instructor today. Please enjoy the rest of the lessons. There's so much to learn from every single teacher here, and you'll be quite happy when you've done all the projects, and you'll be well on your way to being an artist in your own right. Thank you to Deco Art for supporting me through this venture as well, and hope to see you soon next time. Happy painting and God bless. Bye-bye.